Before the camera flashes ever found her, Janice Dickinson learned to live in the dark. She was born in Brooklyn in 1955, but it was in Hollywood, Florida, where her real story began. On paper, it looked like sunshine and palm trees. In reality, it was fear, silence, and survival. Inside her family's home, violence lived in the walls. Janice later wrote about a father who ruled the house through terror, abusing her sisters and beating her when she tried to fight back. Childhood wasn't a time of safety. It was a training ground for endurance. Catholic school offered no escape. The nuns punished her relentlessly. A ballet teacher struck her for speaking out of line. While other girls were taught to be quiet and graceful, Janice was learning how to brace for impact, how to lock her emotions away, how to survive. Long before she ever learned to pose, she learned how to endure pain. As a teenager, she already knew she didn't look like the girls on magazine covers. She was tall, dark-haired, and painfully thin, calling herself an ironing board with legs. Modeling agencies agreed. They looked at her and saw problems. Too ethnic, too strong, too much. The message was clear. You don't belong here. One rejection became dozens, then hundreds. The most famous cut of all came from Eileen Ford, who told her she would never make it in the industry. For many girls, that sentence would have ended the dream. For Janice, it ignited a fire. She didn't shrink. She didn't soften. She hardened. She threw herself into karate, yoga, swimming, anything that made her feel powerful in a world that constantly told her she wasn't enough. She walked into agency offices over and over again, hearing doors slam in her face. But she kept walking, not because anyone believed in her, but because she decided she would not disappear. Everything changed when Wilhelmina Cooper signed her. Suddenly, someone saw possibility instead of problem. And when Janice landed in Paris, the world shifted again. Paris didn't ask her to be softer. It celebrated her sharpness. Her face wasn't a mistake. It was a signature. Designers wanted her because she didn't blend in. She stood out. By the late 1970s, she wasn't begging for work anymore. She was booking covers, walking major shows, becoming a name whispered backstage. The girl who had been told she was too much had become the face everyone wanted to see. When she returned to the United States, she didn't come back quietly. She arrived like a storm. By the early 1980s, her face was everywhere. Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Marie Claire, Versace, Dior, Calvin Klein, Valentino. She wasn't just working, she was dominating. She was earning thousands of dollars a day, numbers that made even other top models stare in disbelief. But Janice didn't just want to be successful, she wanted to be unforgettable. So she did something wild. She declared herself the world's first supermodel. It wasn't technically true. The word existed long before her. But the way she said it, the confidence, the defiance, it stuck. The media repeated it. Television hosts smiled when they introduced her. The title became real simply because she refused to let it be ignored. Other models rolled their eyes. Agents called her dramatic, delusional, too loud. But that was her power. She didn't wait for permission. She made her own myth. Underneath the glamour, though, cracks were forming. The fashion industry moved fast. The nightlife moved faster. And Janice was in the center of it all. New York, in those years, was electric and poisonous at the same time. Cocaine wasn't hidden. It was offered. Alcohol wasn't occasional. It was expected. The parties were endless, and so was the pressure. At first, she resisted. She wanted control. She wanted to stay sharp. But after a devastating breakup, she began to fall. Not all at once. Slowly, quietly. Drugs became a way to numb the noise. Alcohol softened the edges of her thoughts. Nights blurred into mornings. Mornings disappeared entirely. She drove under the influence and nearly died in a car accident in St. Bart's. She became a regular subject for photographers stalking sidewalks and club entrances, capturing her stumbling, laughing too loudly, eyes empty behind perfect makeup. Her personal life became louder than her career. When her daughter Savannah was born, tabloids exploded with rumors about Sylvester Stallone being the father. DNA tests shut it down, but the damage was done. Her name had become fuel for headlines. Janice leaned into it. If they wanted a villain, she would give them a spectacle. She spoke openly about sleeping with hundreds of men, maybe more than 1,000. To some, it was liberation. To others, it was scandal. Either way, she stopped being seen as just a model. She became entertainment. By the 1990s, her name no longer meant elegance, it meant chaos. In the early 2000s, the runway faded, but the spotlight didn't. Reality television found her, and she fit perfectly into it. Tyra Banks brought her onto America's Next Top Model in 2003, expecting a tough mentor. What the world got was a hurricane with a microphone. She criticized weight, skin, posture, attitude, all on national television. She called herself the Simon Cowell of fashion. Viewers loved it. Producers feared it. She wasn't acting. She was being herself, unfiltered, dangerous, unpredictable. After 4 seasons, she was fired. Too volatile, too risky. She was crushed. She said she was trying to save the girls from a harsher industry. The producers said she was too much. That word followed her entire life. Still, she didn't retreat. She launched the Janice Dickinson Modeling Agency. The show became a spectacle of screaming matches, breakdowns, and walkouts. 4 seasons of watching a legend unravel in real time. Then came Celebrity Rehab, Big Brother UK, guest appearances everywhere. If there was a camera, Janice would find it. But with every appearance, something shifted. People stopped seeing the pioneer. They saw the punchline. In 2013, her financial world collapsed. She filed for bankruptcy. Over $1 million in debt. Unpaid taxes, surgical bills. The woman who once earned thousands per day was now a headline about ruin. Then came the moment that changed everything again. In 2014, she publicly accused Bill Cosby of drugging and assaulting her in 1982. She said she had tried to include the story in her 2002 memoir, but lawyers, hers and his, had forced her to remove it. She said she was threatened. She said she was silenced. Speaking up should have been freeing. Instead, it split the world. Some believed her immediately. Others used her reputation against her. Too chaotic, too dramatic, too damaged to be trusted. Her life had turned her into someone the world struggled to believe. And that was the deepest cruelty of all. Her truth was real, but her image worked against her. In 2016, she faced a different kind of enemy. Breast cancer. She found a lump during a doctor's visit. Suddenly, none of the glamour mattered. None of the scandals mattered. It was just her and her body in a quiet room. She went through 6 weeks of radiation and was declared cancer-free. For once, she wasn't screaming to be heard. She was speaking to save lives. She told women to get tested, to not wait, to not be brave in silence. That same year, she married psychiatrist Robert "Rocky" Gurner. For a woman whose love life had lived in tabloids for decades, it was a surprising moment of calm. A quiet anchor in a life that had never stopped shaking. But Janice never became invisible. She stayed on television. She argued on Celebrity Big Brother UK. She gave interviews that felt like performances. She stayed sharp. She stayed loud. And the media stayed cruel. Now the focus wasn't just her words. It was her face, her body. Every facelift, every injection, every wrinkle was dissected. The same industry that once worshipped her youth now punished her for aging. Janice spoke about it without shame. She admitted everything, the knives, the needles, the pressure. She refused to pretend. In her later years, she didn't soften. She didn't rewrite her story to make herself more likable. She spoke about addiction, trauma, fame, survival, with the same brutal honesty she once used to talk about couture and cocaine. And that is who Janice Dickinson remains. She is not a fairy tale. She is not a clean success story. She is a war story. She broke beauty standards. She fought through an industry designed to erase girls like her. She built a name from nothing, but she also burned herself in the process. She called herself the world's first supermodel. And somehow, she lived both the glory and the darkest version of that title. So what is she really? A legend? A warning? A survivor? A spectacle? Maybe she is all of it. And maybe that's the real tragedy and the real power of Janice Dickinson.